Hey listeners, and welcome back to the show. What a fun resource we have for you guys today. Mark Ostrom is the Executive Director of Joy Collaborative. Joy Collaborative is a nonprofit partnership that connects designers, architects, and builders with donors, volunteers, and sponsors. By doing this, they come together and create a unique and personal space for the disability and special needs community. These are not your ordinary spaces. These spaces are beautifully designed and one of a kind, custom to each child's needs and interests. Please check out all of their beautiful work on their website that will be linked in our show notes. You will not regret it. As always, if you enjoyed today's episode, please take a moment to follow us and review us on Apple Podcasts. Thank you and enjoy the show.
Ladies and gentlemen, in this corner, Eddie Gagnon! And in the opposite corner, Kristen Gagnon! This is What's Special About Special.
I wanted to say that.
Well, hello there. My name's Eddie Gagnon.
Eddie, I don't want to be here all night.
Welcome and thank you for joining us. My name's Eddie Gagnon. That was perfect. Kristen.
Your voice. You know, guys, my life is hectic. Working full-time from home, virtual homeschool, podcasting, and really just being an awesome mom and wife, grocery shopping is the last thing I want to do. I'm not ashamed. No, I'm proud to say I rely heavily on Instacart to deliver fresh groceries to our home. Instacart delivers in as fast as 1 hour. I even get a personal shopper to get all of my favorite groceries, so I know it's always right. Right now, Instacart is offering our listeners free delivery on their first order over $35. By following the link in our show notes, you are helping support our show as well. And isn't that just a win-win-win?
All right. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Today we have Mark Ostrom. He's an executive director of Joy Collaborative.
Hi, Mark. Thanks for talking with us.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here.
Eddie's very excited about this interview.
So this is going to be great. And I'm sure we can get right into, we'll get into why I'm really excited about it.
Yeah. So Joy Collaborative, you guys are building homes for kids with life-limiting medical conditions, correct?
Well, we're not building homes. We're doing renovations.
Perfect.
See, I knew it. I told you. She's like, they're building homes. I was like, are they building homes or they're renovating? Because
Eddie knows a lot about that right now.
Yeah. That's the exact thing I'm doing.
Cool.
So before we get into Joy Collaborative, tell us a little bit about yourself, Mark. Where are you from? Tell us a little bit about your story.
Yep. So I grew up in Minneapolis. I live in Minneapolis. I hope they don't bury me in Minneapolis, but I do love my town immensely. But I started out as a really creative kid growing up, and eventually went to school for music education because I really, really enjoy being around kids and like to see them succeed. But by the time I got to kind of maybe my senior year, there weren't a lot of jobs available unless you went to some far-flung location, and being a city kid, that didn't have a lot of appeal. So took some time off, did a couple of odd jobs, and what led me into design is I had a very good friend who, if you happen to remember the Benetton stores that were huge back in maybe the 80s, 90s, she was a director of retail. And we went to a couple of their store openings, and I'd make comments about layout or lighting or acoustics or something. She's like, you need to either work for me or go to school and figure out what this is for you, because you have a knack for it. So, and architecture and things like that were things I was exploring at the time anyway. So, went back to the university, was more concerned about interiors than people experience than I was about architecture. So went through that program, loved it, worked in Minneapolis for a number of years at firms, from very small firms to very, very large firms. And just really enjoyed the experience of creating space along with other people, and got to the point where I am now because of economics. So having ridden out a recession or two, I just got really tired of that because, we'd build up our firms, we'd build up our colleagues, and then it would just evaporate and sink. And it was just that cycle of going up and down. It just was, it's not a great ride for anybody. And so I took some time and just did some introspection and wanted to figure out, I know I have a place in the design world. I think I'm a pretty creative person, but I can't do it this way anymore. So what can I do to maybe take a little bit more control and put my hands on the steering wheel? So I looked back on, favorite moments kind of my personal life and professional life and put a couple things together. One was you may have heard of the Rainforest Cafe, which the first one was here in Minneapolis, in Bloomington, at the Mall of America, and I got to work on that project, and it was, super fun, and it was a stretch creatively, and obviously it had a lot of legs, and now it's owned by Disney and whatnot. But just to have worked on that project and see what experience design did for people was really monumental. Partner that then with when I was going to design school, I was lucky enough to work in the insurance office. And I bet there aren't many people who probably say they're lucky to work in insurance, but as parents, you probably feel very much not that way. But I worked in the dental school for the cleft palate clinic. So the cleft palate where your upper lip doesn't fuse. And it was very complicated surgery. We had a really cool clinician director who brought together all these different kinds of services. So we had dentistry, we had surgery, we had physical therapy, behavioral therapy, all this kind of stuff, which became very expensive for the patients who went through that program.
Oh, for
and
sure.
It was my job to monitor the insurance claims. And you can imagine this was, pre-internet. So the stack of paperwork was ginormous, and both dental and medical would deny families services or claims. Yep. And so it became a real challenge, and I just took it on and I really enjoyed it. And we'd bring a family in and say, hey guys, we got your $10,000 claim paid or whatever. And, tears start flowing because there's all these other pressures happening at home. Best day ever. So
I feel like that's huge that you just said that. It's easy for us parents on our side to just feel like we don't have anyone fighting for us on the other side of it. And I spend so much time on the phone with insurance companies or advocates. And it's good to know that there is somebody on the other side sometimes fighting to help you and take care of things for you.
Well, it was, it started out as it's a really overwhelming job because, well, one, you have to learn all the codes in this book that's 2 inches thick. You have to become familiar with what they mean. But then you also have to start, almost building relationships with the various companies. Right. And after some time, then you start kind of getting into a groove. But even so, you get these, various companies that, demanded these huge packets. It was ridiculous, the amount of work that it would take to build these sort of cases. Yeah. And, but at the same time, I got to know these families because they were in the clinic for a long time, and just got to know them personally. Well, that doesn't take long, and I'm a huge softie, so meet a family who's in trouble, or a kid who really needs help, and I'm there. So, so it was kind of putting those two things together, and I was like, all right. I'd gone through a couple of entrepreneurship programs trying to figure out what this business really is. And once I figured it out, it just clicked that, this is something that I've been wanting to do for a very long time. I just didn't figure out how to do it. Yep. And so I was like, well, I'm not going to jump ship. I'm going to figure out how to do this. So I started doing nights and weekends. I took on some projects. I started with Make-A-Wish, and that led to Ronald McDonald and Shriners and a bunch of others. But the I think this cool problem that we're solving is that Make-A-Wish doesn't really promote space design or renovations of any kind. They're they're really more about the celebrity experience, the cruise to some exotic location. And I was more interested in, what's a permanent solution? Yeah. Right. What's something that this family can use all the time?
They assume that, with Make-A-Wish, I think sometimes the assumption is it's a once in a lifetime thing. And yes, a lot of these kids have, life-threatening conditions, and maybe they have a year left. But a lot of the kids that get Make-A-Wishes, it's not that scenario. this is an opportunity. They've maybe had lots of hospitalizations in 1 year, and this is an opportunity for them to get something. And so what you're doing is really kind of a different take on that, where they're getting a long-term kind of wish in a way.
Right. I mean, they used to only serve kids with chronic diagnoses, right, and that has changed in the last year or two. But even so, they're just not set up to do this kind of work. I mean, it's just how they're set up. They're more about, having those contracts with the franchises or whoever it is to do those experiences, and that's what they want to do. That's awesome. I mean, the kids that it works for, bring it on. That's for sure. That's an incredible thing. This is just a different way to answer a different set of problems.
Yeah. I love it. So, it really seems like you've now melded your past in design along with kind of a little bit of your experience working in the clinic all into one thing, which is really neat. I think it's hard, for all of us to just think like, what do we want to do where we feel fulfilled? And it's really cool that you've found a way to kind of meld it all together.
It's great to hear you say that. I appreciate that, Kristen, because it's taken me a very long time. Somebody asked me the other day, how long have you wanted to do this? And I realized that it was almost, I think maybe in college that I had this idea of just focusing on pediatric design. And there really wasn't. I found one woman in Israel who was doing this work, and I thought, well, then that can't be a thing.
Yeah.
There just weren't any role models. And so I just kind of, just put it to the wayside and went through the regular track that, all my, colleagues are doing. And that was fine. And I had a great experience and learned a ton. But it just got to a point where I'm like, there's something else. I knew there was something else. And it just took me a number of years to figure it out. So now, now we're a nonprofit. We're focusing on spaces for youth with life-limiting conditions. So we started out originally with that being just medical conditions. But again, it comes back to Mark as the softie. But there's so many kids that can be helped if we open that up a little bit. So if we define a life-limiting condition as a medical diagnosis, but then also consider things like homelessness and poverty, there's nobody that I can talk to that would disagree that that's a life-limiting condition.
For sure.
That brings us to different kinds of opportunities. So we will do projects for individual families, just serving an individual family, but then we're also going to be serving programs that are aimed at kids in those other buckets. Oh,
that's really awesome. Because I know here we're in an inner city as well, and so often I think it gets overlooked when there is, like, we have a house that is for battered women who have gone as a respite, and there's not a lot of support for them. There's food and there's shelter, and that's kind of where it ends. And a lot of these kids, whether they're in the foster system or homeless, or, there's a mother that's running from something, a lot of these kids have some either mental health issues or physical or some sort of disabilities. And after birth to 3, there's not a lot of support for them. Like you're saying, when we were in birth to 3 or early intervention, it was a lot easier for us to get support, even when it came down to equipment.
Right.
There was borrowed equipment and there was a lot of sharing. After 3 years old, you're kind of on your own at that point. And so I think it's really cool that, especially for these families that are in any sort of facility or anything, to have some other supports for their kids, because they're probably not getting it in the school system or outside the way that they need.
Yeah, if they're at school at all.
Exactly.
There's a great deal of trauma that's happening before these kids ever get to where it is that they're getting help.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
There might be a family history of trauma that they're just trapped in. They might not know anything else, and we're gearing up to do a project for a homeless shelter for kids, and one of the program directors said, I might be the only person that this kid has ever met that they can trust.
Wow.
So if we can get them there through amazing space and change their outlook and change their trajectory, that is, how can we put a price tag on that? That is so important.
Well, and statistically, it's pretty much proven at this point that play is so integral in a child's development. And so if you can offer that space for them to have that creativity and free thinking and open play, you're just adding so much value to their life.
Absolutely. And what that's going to do is that's going to help with bonding.
Exactly. And that's what they need.
Again, these people are going through trauma.
Right.
Right. And we're trying to get them, it'd be great if we can heal that, that'd be wonderful, but there's going to be a number of them where that's just not possible.
Yeah. Well, and I think it does connect.
Infant, so.
It does. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it does connect well with the disabilities or special needs community because, it's not the same type of trauma, but I mean, we've even seen it in our household and we've been very lucky, but there's a level of trauma that comes with like a level of PTSD that comes with having to have multiple surgeries and going in and out of the hospital.
Question.
Yeah. So, that just to have a safe space, a comfortable space that's yours where you can be free and yourself is like you said, is priceless.
Well, and, I think it was this, this cleft palate clinic experience where I got to meet these families and understand the stresses that they were under or the resources that they didn't have or both.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like, some of them were struggling maybe to both have an income.
Yeah.
You mentioned the mounting medical bills. Doing a renovation at home is probably not high on their list because they probably don't have the Spitfire to do it.
For sure. Right. Yeah. I mean, I know for us, like we're so lucky that that I have Eddie and we own a construction business and that's something that obviously is like, right. It's like having someone who fixes cars, right? Living in your house when your car breaks down. But even with that, I mean, we don't even have a ceiling right now. Because our priorities are working or getting this done or doctor's appointments. So, when we have a free moment, honestly, in our household, when we have a weekend off, we're getting in the car and going on a road trip and trying to make positive memories to just relax. Right. Yeah. It's not, oh, hey, let's work on the house this weekend. And financially, it's when we first started this podcast, we did a crowdfunding and I did a lot of research on like why this would be important, why it's important to bring these resources to the community. And one of the biggest things were that this community, hands down, I think it was like 200% more than the average family in just costs, whether that's medical costs or therapy or whatever it might be.
The loss of income.
Yeah. And then usually there's one parent that's not working in order to make, like when we had little Eddie, I didn't start working until he was maybe 3 because those first few years was just appointment after appointment after. It was impossible to work full time. But so, and again, we've had it very lucky as far as, I don't know, the word mild is the best word, but it's been easier for us than it has for other families that we know. So when I
feel like it's been easier.
Yeah,
we always open up with, I feel like it's been easier for us in our
probably
situation.
hasn't. We just think it is.
You can't argue that stuff.
I know.
It's all relative.
Yeah, it's all relative. Exactly. But I mean, we definitely have friends that have said to us, like, I'm not going to get, like, they've had the same boyfriend for 15 years and they're like, we're not getting married because financially it's going to hurt us. And you think, somebody else might go, oh, they're living off the system, but really they're just trying to survive.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And you can't really judge them for that. They're doing what they can and just make it all work. And it's scary sometimes. And so having an opportunity like this for some families must just mean everything.
Yeah. That's why we're getting divorced next week, right?
Stop.
Just between the three of us.
Yeah, exactly.
We won't let the IRS know.
Listen, if anybody listens, they're probably assuming we're getting divorced at any point.
No shock.
So to back up a little bit, tell us about Joy Collaborative and really what it's doing right now.
So again, it's, I started doing the work and just, again, nights and weekends because I felt it was the right thing to do for me. I needed that because it was a great way to connect to kids. It was a great way to create some, really address some needs that I saw. And then it was about maybe 2 years ago that we started talking about, well, this needs to be a thing.
Yeah.
Like this needs to move away from just a creative outlet and this needs to be more of a business. And so nonprofit was definitely the direction it wanted to go. And going through that paperwork, I wouldn't wish on anybody, but if you need help, call me.
I'm staying away from it for now.
Because it's a lot of work. But it was, quickly became something, it became something that was clear that I wanted to do. All of a sudden, it was kind of the clouds open, and it was clear what wanted to happen. So, we formed a board about a year and a half ago, and they, were really the advisors at the early stages. And then we got our 501 status. And for me, the last year, I would say, outside of doing projects, has really been about, the foundation, creating the foundation of the organization, making sure that it's solid, that we're doing things for the right reasons, that we are accountable, that we are transparent,
right.
And that this is a business. And I get really upset because I've talked to enough people in nonprofit who, there's kind of this, oh, poor me kind of, handout kind of approach. And I'm all about the impact. Like, this is amazing, powerful work here, people. Like, this needs to get recognized and this needs to get promoted. So, I'm not going to have this approach of, a handout. That's just, I'm not interested in that. And the people that we're serving, I don't think want to be served in that way either. So,
well, that's a huge thing. Like I've seen it firsthand. I was on the board of directors of a nonprofit that should not be named, and they were great and they meant well, but they did exactly what you're saying. They did not run it like a business. There were many times that I had like serious conversations in the middle of a board meeting where I was like, this isn't going to work, because you're only going to get so far. You can't grow it. You can't do the impact that you really want to make. And I think approaching it like a business, you're now able to say to anyone who's going to collaborate with you, hey, this is also benefiting you in X, Y, and Z way. You're getting exposure. Look at the positive impact you're making in the community. That's how you work as a business. Yep. Yeah, exactly. And I think that almost marketing kind of catch at it is huge. Yeah.
Well, it becomes a richer story. So, it was, I remember one of the light bulbs that went off. I was doing a lot of business development for a company I was working for. And, we would go off and we would do a night where you're packing food or something like that. And we'd bring a bunch of, design people from my, network together to do kind of that, feel good kind of, it was important work, but we got done and everybody's kind of looking at each other like, well, that was all right.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what if we could like do a real physical project?
Yeah, step it up.
And then it was like, what are you talking about? So now what Joy Collaborative is all about is teaming with trained architects, interior designers, contractors, the vendors to dig into the functional issues of space and make these renovations, make these changes at no cost to those that we serve. So we are, we bring in the caregivers to a project, any healthcare providers that's relevant to whoever we're talking about, whether that's mental health or physical health, siblings, family, to really make sure we get a well-rounded picture of what lays ahead of us. And I'm a big fan of data. So we do pre and post occupancy surveys so we can assess our impact. So again, I come back to it as more of a business, and, we are, yes, there's an incredible feel good part about it, especially, for my architecture and design friends who would like to do something that's a little bit more soul touching, than maybe doing a tenant space. Not that people don't need quality workspace, but it's just a different way for them to use their skills.
I'm so impressed, and I feel like I just have to make sure that we're doing justice. When you're saying you're renovating these spaces, your space is extremely beautiful too, aesthetically. Like, this isn't just a workable space and maybe we're making wider doorways. The photos I saw and the videos I saw of what you guys are doing is so impressive. It's gorgeous. It's beautiful. It's aesthetically usable for the person that's going to be living or using the space. And it was actually impressive, the thought that goes into each space. It's not just, okay, we're making another accessible space. It's really a personal experience, which I think, I'm so impressed by.
Thank you. You can talk to designers who can do things all day long to make things look better. I'm really much more interested in the functional reasons why things aren't working to support whoever it is. So we spend a lot of time. I mean, a typical project for us might take 4 months from initial interview to completion. And that, I would say, a good chunk of that first month, and this is not, 8 to 5, but I'm saying, we're going to spend a month diving into what are the problems.
Right.
We can dive into design. You can jump on Pinterest right now. That's great. You go do that. But I don't want to lead us down a path that doesn't work.
Yeah. You want a functional space that's going to last for more than just 6 months.
Right. So I appreciate your comments. I mean, that is, once we can get through that stuff and get the functional stuff figured out, then we can start layering on things that, are either, more calming or more exciting or whatever it happens, whatever's relevant to that, program.
Right. Oh, it is awesome. It's an awesome project. So where is Joy Collaborative located? Is it right where you are? Is it just local right now?
We are based in Minneapolis, the Twin Cities. So for this year, we are focusing all of our projects within 50 miles of Minneapolis, St. Paul. That will change in the next calendar year when I know we're going to start going beyond that. So, I was talking to a friend the other day about, somebody called me from Atlanta and said, hey, we've got this, special needs girl and all of this, would be great for you guys to do a project. Our assets right now are strongest where we sit.
Right.
And again, going back to the business, the worst thing that we could do is overpromise and underdeliver.
Oh, and for sure.
And so for this next calendar year, it's all about delivering exceptional projects, and then we can go beyond that. But I know that we can control and we can manage and we can deliver within our boundaries right now, because that's where our network is strongest.
Nice.
Well, sorry. When it comes to, I think it's insane. I think 50-mile radius is huge as it is. That's just
we can do it.
I know it's impressive. How is someone reaching out to get help from Joy Collaborative or to become a partner in it?
Yep. So we're just to kind of tag into your last comment. We're on track to do 10 projects this year.
Wow.
Which is basically starting one a month. And I'm really excited about that because it's only March.
Yeah.
And to know we've got projects lined up probably through the fall is very exciting.
I'd be excited if we had 10 projects lined up.
but we do have a referral form on our website so people can self-refer. We are a known entity at a number of the children's hospitals, so their Child Life or their physicians can refer to us.
Oh, that's awesome.
But I would say the majority of our projects are coming in organically from friends or people who've heard about us from other friends. Yeah. And I love that. That's really great. Not that we would, I want to open us up to any project that's valid.
Well, honestly, the special needs or disabilities community as parents, I can tell you right now, it's amazing. I have more connections or quote unquote friends in our little community that I'm always like, oh, I can get this person this, or I can help this person get connected. That's why we started the podcast, right? Because we had such a community we wanted to connect with. Where if you ask me who I talked to from high school, or I'm like, I don't know, nobody. It's just become. It's not only has it become my network, it's become my social group. It's become my support group. So we're always pushing each other.
Educational service here,
Yeah, we're always pushing each other. And I think that's, that's another reason why for you guys, it's great. Cause I'm sure when you do one, they're telling everybody.
Yep.
That's gret.
We just had a reveal event last Friday, which was a couple days ago. And this boy had cystic fibrosis and ADHD. So he has to sit for an hour plus or minus every day.
Oh, goodness.
But the ADHD got in the way for him to just sit and calm down. And we got that project actually through the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation. They found out about us, called us, said, hey, we'd like to do a project with you guys. We've identified this family that has a very small home and they're not going to be able to, do anything on their own. Could you come in and help? And so, the crazy part of this is we started that project November before COVID. And Lifetime Fitness was one of the key sponsors. And because he had cystic fibrosis, which was a respiratory
nobody can come in the house.
There was no way we were going to do anything in March when we were ready to go. So it's just a thrill now that we were able. I mean, this kid stayed. It's a lower level space. He stayed upstairs for at least a month while we were through construction, and so we were just able to take him through it on Friday. And we did a virtual reveal, which was our first and fun, and yeah, just some great responses. You know, can we do it again? How can I help? Blah blah blah. So I mean that level of engagement, once you, I think, can see it. You know, if you saw the space beforehand, which was raw concrete and barely walls and no ceiling, you know, to something that is really fun, that had, you know, an AV component, that had special lighting, that had a custom wall graphic that was done by Minnesota United. So our kid Finn is a big soccer fan, and Minnesota United is our local team, and they jumped in and did a custom wall graphic for him that included his, you know, his number and his name on the back. And
that's really cool.
It just blew his mind. So, but now he's got a nice quiet space. That's it. We called it the breakaway for soccer fans. And it's just a spot where he can break away and he can, you know, just relax, and he can, you know, or he can do schoolwork, or he can have friends over. So, I mean, it's multifaceted in that way.
And that's the thing. And I feel like these spaces that, like you said, like these spaces, they'll grow with him. You know, it's a space that he can utilize for years, which I think, especially right now with COVID, is just so important. I mean, for our little Eddie, it's been tough to like do virtual schooling.
For sure.
Can't be, and he's so social and can't be social. And then they got the ADHD, and we're just jumping around. And I'm pulling my hair out. If he had a safe space where he can just, you know, do whatever makes him comfortable, it's such a neat experience. I think I'm so impressed and excited to hear about what you guys kind of continue to do, because
it's a great feeling to wake up every day to know that you're going to, you know, help some family or help some kid along the way. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm jealous. I'm so jealous.
Do you want your own space?
Oh my God. No.
Oh, you want to make it?
Yeah, no, like of the work, like to be creative. Like I can't tell you how many times I go to like estimates and stuff, and I'm like, you know what we can do with this space? And they're like, well, no, we just want to put like, you know, a couple cabinets here. And I'm like, oh, cool. The what I was envisioning, it was like way better, but let's do what you want to do to your house.
You're their only paying.
I know, but they're actually paying. So
well, you know, it's kind of the beauty of it. It's like, you know, we get this really cool, you know, kind of entwinement between, you know, this person who needs help or this group that needs help. We've got this design community who'd love to do something that's maybe a little bit more engaging.
Right.
And because our projects are sort of short term, they get to see the results fairly quickly. I mean, I was working on projects, it would be years before we saw, you know, the final solution.
Right.
So,
well, and you're typically only renovating a room, correct? Or is it like how is your renovations typically?
It's really project dependent. It depends on the organization. We try to keep them under a certain square footage and level of complexity. So we're not moving plumbing walls. We're not moving load bearing walls. You know, we need spaces that primarily are sort of are finish ready, so we can come in and do this work, because we can't. I can't lean on contractors to come in and do that kind of work at no cost. That's just
right. And you want to have a turnaround time. If you want to complete 10 projects in a year, then you need to be able to turn it around fairly quickly.
Right. So, I mean, it's absolutely right. So, I forgot the question.
No, there wasn't really one. We were just kind of
going.
I was kind of like how big or small the jobs are.
Scale. Yeah. So the homeless teen center that I mentioned, I think what we're going to end up doing, because it's a space that sort of was cobbled together over time. I think they've been in business for more than 50 years, which is fantastic, and they've been growing. But the spaces aren't necessarily contiguous, and they're on different floors, and they're serving different kinds of areas of their population. So I think what we're going to end up doing, my fingers are crossed, that we'll end up doing sort of a master plan, and then we'll pick away, you know, maybe there'll be 3 phases, and we'll phase those in over time.
That's a good idea.
Because to do them all at once, I think is going to be really disruptive for a group that, you know, doesn't need that.
Right. I was going to say they need the least disruption possible, probably. Yeah. So how are you connecting with contractors or companies to help get this work done?
I keep a list of designers, and we've got more designers that we can probably give projects to right now, which is awesome.
Wow.
Usually they're connected to contractors. I know a number of them, but they come through. The one for Finn that we just did, this is their second or third project, and they're looking for more. So that's just fantastic. And then as far as, organizations, what we're doing now, which I find really exciting, is expanding beyond just sort of this just renovation as a one and done kind of experience. Mm-hmm. So in the case of Boys and Girls Club, we're looking at doing the Boys and Girls Club in South Minneapolis, which happens to be just a couple blocks from the George Floyd site. So it's definitely an underserved neighborhood.
Right.
There are kids who are failing at school. There are parents who have no eyes on their kids, and I'm not shaming anybody. I'm just saying this is the reality.
No, it's the reality here where we are too. Yeah.
Okay, and so they're not, these kids are not being drawn to this program, and that is hugely unfortunate because they have great resources. So we're talking to a couple of the local sports franchises about, can you let's do a couple things. Maybe you guys bring some coaches in once in a while.
Yeah.
And help these kids and get them excited about being in this place, because what we're trying to do is get them into the building. The building has not been renovated in at least 30 years. There is no kid I know who would step into that space and go, yeah, I want to spend time here. I mean, it is sad. And
they want to see something cool and worth leaving, leaving a computer or phone or an iPad to go do.
No, I mean, I wish, it needs. And that's what the exciting part about working with other nonprofits is like, they've stretched themselves as far as they can go.
Right.
But they need to not be worrying about the stuff that I want to worry about.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
They want to worry about getting these kids in. And then if the kids aren't doing well in school, if they're not even coming into the building so they don't get access to these resources, we're not helping. No. And so what can we do around this renovation? Can we bring in a sports franchise? Maybe we start doing esports teams. Maybe there's other things that we can do to start telling stories about the successes that these kids are going to have.
Oh, I think I'm jealous. I'm going to move to Minneapolis, except for it's way too cold for me. It's too cold for me here in New England. So I won't be coming there, but seriously,
I love that.
It is. It's such a great opportunity for these kids. I mean, we see it here. Living in an inner city and our kids going to public schools, which I'm grateful that we have that opportunity, but I see it. I see kids whose parents aren't home. They work 2 jobs and they're not home during the day and they're not home at night. And, especially right now, like virtual schooling is a joke for them. Really, it's not something that that's not their priority. And I don't blame them. Their priority is putting food on the table and a roof over their head. Right.
And if let's say you're the oldest teen in the house, you're all of a sudden responsible.
You're now an adult. Yeah.
So now all of a sudden you're responsible and you may or may not be participating in school, and that we just can't have that. And we can't have, a bunch of kids failing out of school, 2 years into COVID. That's just not going to work.
Now you have got kids on the street. I mean, they're going to turn into kids that are on the street at that point.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So this space will have, they'll definitely be, it'll be, I don't know what it's going to be. Right. I don't want to project anything, but it's going to be a very exciting, flexible space for kids to have one-on-one mentorship in a very quiet situation. We're going to have group work. We're going to have podcasts going on. We're going to have esports happening. I mean, it's going to be a thriving magnet space. That is our goal right now.
I love that you're thinking beyond just building the space. Mm-hmm. That there's more to it. I mean, because it's really easy and great if someone just came in and said, hey, we're going to just renovate this space and we'll paint the walls and it'll look great and bye. That's still needed in some of these places. But if the fact that you're willing to add the extra element of saying that's not going to be enough, we need to get people to come into the door to utilize this space. How can we do that? And you're being creative and you're thinking outside the box and using the connections you're making while doing this project, I think is so necessary and really neat and cool and inspiring for anyone.
Well, we all want a better community to live in.
Right.
As far as I can tell, we all want a better community to live in. So if we can take some of our local resources where they have a surplus and bring it in and having it impact in a meaningful way, hey, that's a win.
Oh, for sure. How can someone donate to get involved if that's something they were interested in?
Just go to joycollaborative.org in 2 minutes and hit the donate button.
Perfect. That's easy.
Do it. Or the other thing, if we're, if somebody's interested, they are interested in creating one of these sort of affiliate, we're calling them affiliate programs. Just call me, because two things can happen. I can tell you what we've been doing, but I also know that people come with really creative ideas.
Right.
And I love being able to have those open conversations and just say, what is it that you guys are coming with? What can we do to mirror back, and accelerate or accent what it is that you're already doing, so that it's not maybe just a room. Maybe there is something that's connected to what it is that you are as a business or a company.
I think that's great too, to just kind of the fact that you're willing to share what you're doing and help grow this business model, for lack of a better word, really, right? It's a type of a business model in a way, but
yep.
It's such, you're giving back so much.
Have at it.
You know what? There's such a need everywhere that you can't have this too much. You can't have too much of it.
Right. I mean, that is our hope that in I don't want to say in a year, in a couple of years, that this will be a national program. I mean, that
would be so awesome.
That's been my goal all along. That's why it's so important for me to build a foundation. That's why it's so important for me to do strong projects before we branch out. So I see this as something that we can replicate elsewhere, and I'm hope and pray almost every day that that's something that we're headed to do.
It has. I can see Eddie, without even looking at him,
oh my God,
dying to get his hands on something like this.
I can't wait.
All right, Eddie, I got your number.
So we specialize in bathrooms, kitchens, remodels. We do decks. So we do ramps. My colleague and myself are we don't like to brag, but we're very talented.
No, you are. But you're creative. That's the key.
Yeah. So we're both very creative, and just we have a lot of time ahead of us. So I think the sooner we get into this, the better.
Well, I will say,
I can't wait.
I think you're forgetting, when we first started thinking about what kind of business could we start, years ago, before our daughter was born.
Bike shop.
You wanted a bike shop, but it wasn't just a bike shop. You wanted to
bike shop with an after school program, because they had a skate park, because then I would have
you wanted
kids
a community center.
Yeah, because then it would be
start tomorrow.
Yeah, that's the thing. Well, the thing is that
cool.
we were we were inner city kids. Yeah. So we knew what it was like to grow up and not have, we were, the way I look at it is we just came out lucky. We rolled out of being from an inner city kid. One, we had a solid foundation in our family. We're privileged in a way, but we were poor. There were times that we were in the line to get food down at the food pantry. That was my family. And so to think that I think for us, we were we're going to own something. That's a necessity. Yeah. But we can't just own something without giving back. And we've said it many times, when we wanted that bike shop, it was okay, a bike shop in a community center. I'm going to make sure I bring kids off the streets doing something. Right.
And then I would have a little cafe too. So then you can have kids making money, earning money. And then it was then you have a restaurant. Yeah. And so it was then they can learn how to cook and serve it.
With this business, we've talked about, as soon as we're financially in a spot where because we just started the business, but we're in a financial good spot, we were once a year at least, we're doing some sort of give back project. Because again, we know too many people that have been affected by things and gotten those types of projects, and it's changed their lives.
Yep.
Absolutely.
So, I want to keep being a part of something like that, because it's exciting it's one of those win-wins where you change someone's life. It benefits them, but it also, selfishly benefits you a little bit, and that's okay. I'd rather be selfish and benefit ourselves.
That is, that's one of the legs of the stool here. It's because, this is a great way to build community, not just in a larger community, but within the design world. So in a firm, you're dealing with a tough client, or you're doing something that just doesn't really spark your interest. Well, if you get a nasty client, but I can unplug later on and, help Emily with a special whatever.
Right.
It will help your day job.
For sure.
And it'll get your colleagues excited once they find out what you're doing.
Well, and working for a company, I'm sure that it's an easy selling factor to get companies on board to work with you. It's the fact that what it must do for morale as a whole, when you work for a company who's willing to give back like this. I know for me, if I'm looking at two companies for a job offer, I'm definitely going to jump on the one that's looking to give back to the community, because their fingers on the pulse, right? Like they're really paying attention to what's going on, and it's not just about them. And that is priceless. Like it's in a way where like you're going to keep retention of employees. It's just going to make a big difference.
And I think in the last couple of years being so traumatic for everybody, I think this is definitely going to be more of a focus on building culture.
Yeah.
Within companies and doing that kind of outreach is going to be really critical. I think people you're seeing it in many companies that they don't have any kind of outwardly facing, program to do social good, customers going to go to, the other.
Well, I think generationally, that the Gen X generation and all of that is their mindset is more about quality over quantity, right? Yeah. You see that they would prefer to work 4-day work weeks and get all of the work that you could get done in 6 days in 4 days because quality is more important than quantity. Right. And I think that there are companies that are just not on board with that, and they're slowly going to get outrun by the companies that are, because they recognize the good that it does for everybody as a whole. When you have a better mental health, you're a better employee. I mean, absolutely, hands down.
I mean, design firms have been doing, good work in the community for a long time. Some of it may not have been necessarily related to physical space. So this is a great way for them to prove kind of what they do, that this is what they do as a profession. Because, I mean, any volunteer group can come in and do paint and stickers.
Right. It's tangible.
Anybody can come and do that.
Right.
But to bring in trained professionals who do this, every day, who are, very empathetic, because that is what we do as designers, that they're going to ask questions that maybe you hadn't thought about, and years of problem solving behind them. I think we're going to get, greater quality, product in the end.
Oh yeah. I mean, architects, engineers, their brain works in a way that I can't even understand. I mean, Eddie's got an engineer brain. And sometimes I think, how did you even come up with that? You're so creative. I mean, there's a reason why STEM is so important right now, because it really does stimulate your whole entire brain. And if you can sit down with somebody whose brain works that way and say, these are where my struggles are, and then someone can come to you and go, I see your struggles and I have a solution.
100%.
I can't even imagine. I mean, that actually just happened to us with our son's braces for his legs. He's so unique in his disability. There's not a lot of kids like him, if any. And we've talked to so many orthotists that have said, this is the standard. And it's like, well, the standard doesn't work for him. Mm. We know what his strengths are. We know what his weaknesses are. And the standard orthotic just isn't going to work. And we met this amazing orthotist who custom drew and custom created this amazing orthotic out of like 3 different designs. Like, that's a creative brain that needs to be working in that field, So the more people we can get kind of excited about doing that kind of work and knowing that it's there for them to do, I think it's exactly what you did in your life. You saw a need and you saw that you had this creativity when it came to design, but also, you have a big heart and you're thinking about others. I think being able to collaborate the two of them is really cool.
Yeah, I hope we've got something really unique, and just to be able to help on a larger scale is going to be really fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm stealing it. I'm sorry. We're in Massachusetts.
He said, steal it. So you said you've got coming up, you've got about 10 projects this year, which is really exciting.
Yes.
You must have a lot of excited families and communities. Tell us about the fundraiser you've got coming up. It's called Barkitecture, which is the neatest name ever.
Barkitecture is going to be a fundraiser for us. So Joy Collaborative is all about, creative space. And we've all been locked up with our pets, if you've got pets for a long time. And now we're treating our pets very differently. So much more human than maybe they would have been before.
Yes, for sure.
And so we thought, well, let's treat our pets to something creative. So we came up with Barkitecture. So it'll be a fundraiser in June that'll be primarily virtual, some in person, of pet furniture. So we're going to reach out to our designer friends and our creative. Minneapolis is known for creativity and all the amazing studio artists we have here. And it's going to be a wide open competition to support Joy Collaborative and the work that we're doing. So I'm really, really excited to be able to look forward to it, to see what kind of entries we come in, because we know we're going to get some just choice ones. But we're also partnering with Finnegan's. Finnegan's Brew Company is here in Minneapolis, and they opened an incredible brew house not long before COVID. But their business model is they are a nonprofit brewery, so they give their profits away to the community, and by offering other services, which is where they make their income. And
that is so cool.
And so it's just this great partnership between us, and I'm super excited. We're I think we'll have some fun surprises for people.
That is so neat.
That's awesome. You should send us some Finnegan's beer.
You're second.
Every once in a while, we need to chill out. But what I think it's really neat that, especially with COVID, it's almost opened up and allowed things like this, like fundraisers that are virtual, to be for anyone can donate, anyone can participate in. So I think it's great that we're able to kind of highlight that and let our listeners know, because I would assume anyone can jump in, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. I can't wait to see Eddie's entry. I know that'll be coming.
It will be.
But yeah, that's going to be the fun part. I mean, originally it was just going to be, we were going to do it in some, space where people could get together. And then when we realized that, even in June, people aren't going to be comfortable really getting together in person, and a lot of nonprofit experiences are happening online. So we're just going to focus a good chunk there. But we'll have photographs of all the entries, and there will be a competition online, and we'll have celebrity judges, and we're going to have kid judges. And
I love it.
It's going to be really fun.
I think it's such a creative and unique way to do a fundraiser, because I feel like so many people are doing like a virtual gala or, things like that, which are great. But I think it's a really neat way to get people excited about wanting to be a part of something.
I hope so. I mean, it's, we'll have opportunities where people if they just want to donate, and don't need a pet furniture piece, that's totally great. But I think we'll find a bunch of different ways that we're going to be able to,
for sure,
to have some fun.
I mean, listen, since COVID, if I see one more dog or cat picture, and I've posted more than I need to be posting, because we're all working from home, right? So I'm working from home now, when I was out of the house probably 50 hours a week. And my dogs are, as you could tell, even during this interview, very needy for our attention. And that's only because I'm home all day long with them. Yeah, they get my full love and attention. They've now become just another child.
Okay, so my entry is going to be...
You can't tell anybody. It's a secret. Okay. No. What's your entry idea?
Oh, at the end of the bed. I'm going to do
I know. We need something at the end of the bed so bad.
Dogs, so they can be right there too.
Stay off our bed.
End of the bed. Off
Beautiful.
The bed. Yeah.
Great idea.
And we'll have like little drawers and stuff for like their toys and blankets.
Someone's going to steal your idea. Get to building.
When does this episode come out? And when are we doing the thing?
Before the thing.
We'll have it on our website. Early April is when we'll have everything kind of lined up. And then the event is actually June 5th. But entries are going to be due a couple of weeks before, so we can all get them on social and let everybody see them.
Perfect. We'll share it all, because I'm excited about that. That's really neat.
Awesome.
So we ask all our guests the same thing. If you had a few moments to speak to our community, what type of advice would you give them?
I think you touched on it a little bit earlier, and I would just say ask for help. And I come at that from the design experience. That, I mean, at least here in Minnesota, we're known as a very philanthropic community, and I think we have people who'll say yes within reason pretty easily. And I think to your audience that, you might be surprised at what they might find if they just ask about a problem that they think is insurmountable, or they can't see a way around it. Designers love solving problems like this. 6 degrees of separation is not a thing. Mm-hmm. So you could find somebody very talented to help you. Don't run to, maybe a builder store to kind of look for answers. I would go to somebody who really has experience, who's been trained in asking questions and not letting you off the hook easy when it comes to answers.
Oh, I think that's such great advice, because so many times it is really easy to think, I'll just go on Pinterest and I'll figure it out and make it work for our family. But the reality is, like you're saying, I think we forget sometimes that designers are creatives, right? So they think differently than the typical person does. And when you're creative, you're really thinking about how will this space work for an individual or for a family or a community. And sometimes you'd be surprised by how many people can help out. I think a lot of times people will think, I can't make my house more accessible because I don't have the money or I don't have the means. But the reality is there are a lot of people that are willing to even just explain to you what you can do to make it a DIY.
Or find somebody who can be your advocate. Find that Chihuahua person, you know them, who's just not going to give up, who's going to make sure that those waivers come through, or is going to make sure that they can find some cash because you can't afford the raw materials or whatever it is.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of persistence, and you don't have to be obnoxious about it.
Yep. I mean, I think it's perfect. Like, use the same energy you use when you're fighting with an insurance company to get your diapers covered that you would to get your house squared away to make it comfortable for everybody. And I think that's huge, because I know, like, even for Eddie, the space he's working on right now, they're creating a therapy type room that's not just for their child, but it's just so that they can have socialization with other parents and other children. And there's a safe, comfortable space for everybody involved, which is, I know for like when we had Eddie and he was younger, it was huge to know that we could go to a space where I wasn't full of anxiety. Because that was a big, you're walking in full of anxiety. You think, will this even work for us? Even when we have friends over to our house, I think if we're going to have a picnic, what if they have a wheelchair? How are we going to help them get into the house? I don't want anyone to feel uncomfortable, but some of those things are very simple changes you can make for your own space to make it comfortable. And then you can have everyone come to your space. And now you've got a social group on top of that, which is something we have a difficulty doing in our little world, being social.
We'll get back on top of it.
I think there's such a, the world has such a bias against what people look like. And, we need these kids. Yeah. We need these kids. They've got talents. They are absolutely need to be somebody that we weave into our community. And we can benefit from what they bring. And inclusion is a win. So, I see what we do as an honor and a privilege to hopefully get those kids, to a point of bravery and excitement.
Doing pretty good.
So where can everyone find Joy Collaborative, find yourself, to reach out if they're looking for more information?
Anything you should need to know about is on joycollaborative.org.
Perfect.
My contact information is in there. Give me a call, email, whatever you need, whatever works best. I'm happy to talk about what we're doing.
Awesome. I think I'm really excited to see what you guys do. I mean, you guys are so new in this process and already making such an impact. So I'm really, really excited to see where you guys go and what you guys do.
Thank you both.
Yeah. Thank you. You're an inspiration for sure, Mark.
Absolutely.
Oh. All right. Well, we'll get ready when we need a couple of Eddies on our projects.
Yeah, you should. Be careful.
We just set the bar, and so I got something to aim for now. That's what I like. I'm a goal-driven person.
Well, thanks, Mark. We really appreciate you coming on the show.
It was a great talk. Thank you both. I love what you guys are doing, and the information you're putting out there is just great. So thank you.
Same to you.
Thanks, Mark. Well, thank you so much for listening. We really hope you enjoyed this episode. As always, please make sure you share with a friend and leave a review.
You can find all the resources mentioned in this episode on our Facebook or Instagram on @specialaboutspecial. Thanks again, and we'll see you soon.